Welcome back to Everything All the Time. I'm Pat O'Brien. Court McCowan is with me. Denny Somax on the line.
Yes.
And he is the greatest rock and roll historian alive. Is that okay, Denny? Is that a good enough introduction?
What can I tell you?
Yeah, well, you can agree with me. Just agree. And has written the book, Get the Lead Out, How Led Zeppelin became the biggest band in the world, one of the most iconic openings to a song. But he's also an expert on the Beatles. And we have some breaking Beatle news, right?
Yeah, there's a Beatles movie coming out called 8 Days a Week, comes out in September, and it was assembled and directed by Ron Howard. And it's made up of all the live pieces of footage that have been taken of the Beatles on 64, 65, 66, the 3 tours of America. Which, of course, the anniversary of the last one's coming up in August in Candlestick Park, where the last show, which nobody knew at the time.
Yeah.
That's right. And there's a guy named Larry Kane, who was the only American newsman to travel with the Beatles on all their tours. And his interviews are used in the movie, as well as a lot of his traveling around with them. So it's basically, and Paul and Ringo, they make appearances vocally, not physically. But it's basically nothing but footage of everything you've ever seen. Every local TV station that covered one of the tours, they were able to dig up all that footage.
You know what I love? Denny Somax, our guest, musical archivist, the kind of music that lasts. I love all the old interviews. I don't know if Larry Kane did one of these, but it makes me so angry. You know, when the interviewer would just make fun of him. Yeah, so when do you think you'll get that haircut? You know.
Yeah. Well,
right.
You also got to remember the time. That was the big deal.
I understand the time.
They didn't understand. They didn't understand what no, I don't think anybody understood at the time. Well, I think you saw this great movement. You know, this British movement that was coming in with these guys, and the way it changed everything, the way it changed music. But at the time, I don't think you really knew that. I didn't
know they're going to be this big.
Nobody knew they were going to be this big. Nobody. And I think, you go back to that first, Ed Sullivan appearance where it was
70 million people.
70 million people.
Yeah.
That's
never to be duplicated.
Never.
But Denny Somax, our guest, I once said to Paul, because I have quite a Beatles collection of things that I got autographed and that sort of thing. And Paul said, "I understand you have a great collection of Beatles stuff." And I said, "Yeah, I do." And he said, "I don't have anything. He said, I don't have my boots. I don't have my." He said, "My Sgt. Pepper's thing is in the Smithsonian." He said, "But I don't have anything because I didn't know." You know what I said to him? I said, "Paul, you have the $1 billion. you can go on eBay and buy it back." So that movie's a great idea.
Did you know, by the way, that Julian Lennon has been buying up Beatle memorabilia for the last 10 years and now has one of the largest collections in the world?
Good for him.
Why does he have to buy it?
Well, how else is he going to get it?
Yeah, you're right.
Most of it's in the hands of private collectors.
Well, how'd they get?
He goes in and he bids under another name, or he has somebody bid for him because as soon as they find out it's him. Yeah, he's assembled this amazing, which I think he'll put on tour at some point.
Will anybody ever reproduce what the Beatles did and do all of it?
No.
Yeah, I gotta say, not even close.
Yeah, and I always bring this argument up because it's not an argument. I just said the social implications, the hair. Everything and 300 and how many songs? 72 songs.
Yeah,
that are iconic, and we all know the words to most of them. That'll never happen again.
Well, I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any possible way. And Denny, back me up if you believe this, but I just don't think in the day of social media, the way that they kind of rolled out, like at one time, we said 70 million people, the way this rolled out and affected people. And this was before the internet, before texting, before before there was really, there was no VCRs, if you didn't see it live, you didn't see it. No, but you couldn't play back the Ed Sullivan Show.
And sometimes when I was a long talk with Paul another time, and I was telling about my band in South Dakota, which Court makes fun of.
Yes.
But we had a big band, and he said, "Why'd you guys get started?" I said, "Because of you." I said, everybody wanted to. And he goes, "Do you think that happened a lot?" I said, "Where in the hell you been, man?"
Yeah, it happened all the time.
So what's next for you? Tell us about your business, because I know you.
Yeah, well, what I'm doing is, and as you know, Pat, you're one of the biggest fans of it because you have a lot of them up in your house. I know. About 20 years ago, I started doing a series of limited edition lithographs of well-known album covers. Now, back then there was no internet. It was a whole new thing, and I don't mind boasting, saying I think it was ahead of my time.
Way ahead.
So we did all these, and then 20 years go by, and I get a call from the people at Time Life. And they go, we don't think there's going to be CDs and DVDs around much longer, so we need to get into a new business. And I said, well, how about what I was doing 20 years ago? And all of a sudden they go, yeah, well, a bunch of people here remember seeing you. We'd like to do that. So I'm working with Time Life. We just came out with a series of Rolling Stones album art covers. You can go to timelife.com and check them out. And we're working on 3 or 4 other groups, which I can't mention, but I think it's really gonna explode this time.
Now, is the Beatles stuff untouchable? Who controls that? As far as marketing,
controlled by Apple.
Yeah, can you market Beatles memorabilia?
You can, but you need to get permission from the Beatles because they,
So this is
no way around it.
Right?
Now
Is
go
it the
to
Beatles or Yoko.
No, it's a guy named Jeff Jones.
I know Jeff. Yeah.
Who I know, and a lot of people know. He used to work at Sony Records in New York. He now runs Apple. When Neil Aspinall passed on, they finally hired somebody, and he's the guy that runs it. And he lives in, works in London.
My favorite thing ever, and you know me, every year I get a birthday note from Yoko.
Oh,
right.
God.
Is that great?
That's scary.
Yeah.
That's really scary.
Yeah.
So
Denny, you go to timelife.com.
Right, and it'll say lithographs, and you'll see the Stones that we just put out, Let It Bleed, Get Your Ya-Ya's, and 12 by 5.
I got to tell you.
Limited edition. Plus, it comes with a limited edition copy of the vinyl.
Oh, that's
special clear vinyl that we made.
You guys
go this package.
Go check this out because, like I was telling you earlier, one of my favorite things is artwork for the wall. I love rock and roll artwork, and it's so hard to find really great stuff. So go to timelife.com, look up lithographs, look up Denny's stuff. I'm going to go on it and I'm going to check it out.
Hey, Denny.
And anybody has any questions, or you guys do, you can reach me through Facebook. I don't mind answering any questions about collectibles.
Awesome.
Which Beatle books have you written?
I wrote a book called Ticket to Ride.
Yeah.
Which I
know. I just want to use it. Yeah.
Yeah,
go ahead.
you know that one. And then I had another one when the Beatles anthology came out. It was called Meet the Beatles Again. And it's just interviews with all these different people who did what you just said earlier, Pat. They saw the Beatles and Ed Sullivan and decided to start a band.
Are there any great movies out there? We talked the other day because we're big fans of the Eagles. The history of the Eagles is one of the greatest documentaries I've ever seen on music. One of the reasons I love that documentary so much is they play so much music. There's not just a hint of the song; they play a song,
right?
And you get to see the full song. Are there any other movies out there, with the exception of maybe I think one of the greatest movies of all time, The Last Waltz?
Yes.
Are there any other movies besides?
I'll tell you a real quick aside. I was at The Last Waltz.
Oh, God.
Now, wait a minute.
Now I hate you.
Oh,
now,
fuck you.
There,
I'm sorry.
Being there, it was the most boring thing because they kept reshooting it. It was over at 4 a.m. The movie came out. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. I met a grip one time who was a grip on that, and it was directed by Martin Scorsese. If you have not seen The Last Waltz, maybe the greatest movie ever done.
I was invited to go to We Are the World and participate, and said no.
Said no. Good for you.
I said, what the hell am I going to do there?
Yeah.
And
By the way, Pat, the most asked question I get from Beatle fans when I do an appearance or when I'm out doing a sign or something, and I don't know if you get this too, is how did Michael Jackson get to own the Beatles?
Yeah.
Number one question.
Paul McCartney.
He bought them, right?
Paul McCartney told him.
No. Yeah, but there's a book out. It's been out in England. I think it was released here not too long ago. Called it's called Northern Songs, and it's all about
that was
how
a
the
publishing
Beatles lost
company.
the rights to this.
Yeah.
It's all about it. It's a fascinating story.
But what a dumb thing, right?
I heard there was.
Nobody knew.
I heard that Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson were doing that. Whatever that song, that duet they did together, and Michael Jackson was asking Paul McCartney advice, and Paul McCartney said, "Buy publishing." He goes, "That's the greatest thing you can ever do." And I think like a month and a half later, or whatever it was later, he bought the rights to the Beatles, and Paul, kind of reflecting back, went, "Maybe I shouldn't have said that."
Before we go, the greatest thing, Denny, that George Harrison ever said, we're sitting around talking, and we were talking about we're actually on his plane, flying somewhere, and we were talking about spirituality and going to the Himalayas.
Yeah.
And he said this. He goes, if you have a problem and go to the Himalayas to get rid of it, all you're doing is taking your problems to the Himalayas. You should stay in Burbank. Denny, we love you, and we hope people go to the website and buy. I'm so glad we've reconnected, and thank you so much for a great appearance.
Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
and
Denny.
Next time I'm in LA, I'll give you a holler.
Give me a holler. I'll talk to you anyway.
All right.
Denny Somek.
Okay.
There he is.
Awesome.
There he
Thanks,
goes.
Pat. Thanks
you bet.
for it.
You
There
got
he
it.
is.
Thanks, Danny.
Bye-bye.
One of the great guys and so
Love that.
knowledgeable. You could sit with him for hours and ask him every question.
Well,
which we kinda
I think
did.
when we're done here, I'm going to make a little phone call about The Last Waltz. I got to talk. That's one of the greatest. I think the greatest movies I've seen it maybe 50 times. It's so
You know
good.
what the last line of the movie is?
No.
Yeah, you do.
What is the
By
last?
Robbie Robertson. He lights up a cigarette and he says, "The road is one goddamn impossible place."
Oh yeah, that's right.
Pardon me using the Lord's name in vain, but I was
That's
quoting.
right. I've dropped a few.
Well,
things
no, I was
today.
quoting.
Yeah.
I hate to use the Lord's name.
Yeah. Wow.
Do you love the baby Jesus?
Well.
All right. We'll be back to wrap all this up in a minute.